London and New York both have very large and comprehensive public transit systems. In this video, we will take a look at them both, comparing and contrasting them based off a variety of topics. Before we do that, please remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel. The first thing we need to look at is the geography of both regions. The New York Combined Statistical Area, also known as the Tri-State Area, consists of 30 counties in Connecticut, New Jersey, and New York, including the 5 counties that make up New York City itself. Greater London is composed of 32 boroughs, which make up the County of Greater London, as well as the City of London, which is kind of its own special thing. Both regions have lots of waterways, although New York has a greater amount of water than London. London is bisected by the River Thames, which flows westward to the English Channel. New York is on the Atlantic coast and the Hudson River, with the city proper being at the mouth of the river. The first point of comparison is overall network size and coverage. In New York, the commuter rail systems connect to the furthest reaches of the region, although they don't always have the most frequent service. In London, the regional rail is operated by a plethora of companies, but most services operate with at least a decent frequency and run in many places in the region, mostly in the south, where the Underground doesn't serve as much. The Underground stretches further out from central London than the New York City subway does from Manhattan, but the subway has more stations than the Tube. Both cities have ferry service, with New York's being more comprehensive, although not always with good frequencies, than London's, due to New York being more of a water city. In the realm of buses, London does better overall. While in New York City and the inner suburbs, buses mostly run frequently and have amazing coverage, when you get further from the city proper, coverage and frequency sees a massive drop-off. In London, there is amazing coverage throughout the region, with most routes operating at good frequencies. Overnight, London has decent bus coverage and overnight tube service on select lines on weekends, while New York City's subway operates 24/7 across the whole system, and some commuter rail lines also operate overnight, but there is little to no overnight bus service. Frequency-wise, London beats New York, with services in London operating more frequently on average than their counterparts in New York. All rail systems in both cities use 4 feet 8.5 inch or 1435mm standard gauge for their tracks, although the loading gauges, the maximum size of the train, vary widely between systems. The next thing I want to talk about is integration between different modes and systems. In Greater London, you can use the same fare payment system for all modes and operators, even when fares are different, making connections and transfers seamless and easy. Bus stops are always very well marked and are conveniently located near stations, and tube stations are well integrated into mainline stations. When traveling within Greater London, it feels like you are on one large system other than a bunch of separate systems, even when that may not actually be the case. In New York, there is a hodgepodge of different operators, and even when the same company operates different services, there isn't always good integration between them. Take the New York City subway and the Long Island Railroad. Both systems are operated by the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, or MTA. However, they use completely different fare structures and even slightly different wayfinding, making them feel disconnected, even where the physical walk between systems is very simple. When you add to that how many different transit operators there are that are not integrated with one another, it becomes a huge mess. Fares are the next point of comparison. In London, fares for all rail services follow one unified zone system, with riders paying more the more zones they travel through and paying more during rush hour. On the trams and buses, you pay a single fare and get unlimited rides within 1 hour. The cable car and ferries have their own special fares. Prices for intercity rail services are done through the individual operators. Transport for London, TfL, coordinates the fares as well as running most of the services in Greater London. In New York, each system has its own fare structure. Some systems, like the Long Island Railroad and New Jersey Transit, use fare zones like a TfL, although NJT has different fare zone systems for bus and rail, and similarly charge different fares depending on whether you travel during rush hour or not. Other systems, like the New York City Subway, Newark Light Rail, and the Westchester B-Line bus system, use a single flat fare, although different operators may have different amounts to pay. Lastly, the Staten Island Ferry and Roosevelt Island Red Bus are fare-free. There is some fare integration within New York, with a few operators all using the Omni system, chief among them the New York City Subway. For the rest of the video, you will go through each mode of transit and compare them between London and New York, starting with the highest order transit, Intercity Rail. New York City has intercity services operated by Amtrak along its northeast corridor between Washington, D.C. and Boston. This includes the high-speed, albeit barely, Acela service, and the slower-speed Northeast Regional, which also runs to places outside the Northeast Corridor. The Keystone service and Pennsylvanian run to points in western Pennsylvania, while long-distance trains operate to Chicago, Lakeshore Limited via upstate New York, and Cardinal via West Virginia, and the southern U.S. The Palmetto and Carolinian run during the day to Savannah, Georgia, and Charlotte, North Carolina, respectively. Overnight, the Crescent runs to New Orleans via Atlanta, Georgia, and the Silver service runs to Miami, Florida. Amtrak additionally operates the Empire Service to Niagara Falls and Buffalo, the seasonal Berkshire Flyer to Pittsfield, Massachusetts, the Ethan Allen Express to Burlington, Vermont, and international trains to Toronto, Maple Leaf, and Montreal Adirondack. All of these services depart from New York Penn Station in Manhattan. Lastly, Amtrak and the Connecticut Department of Transportation operate trains between New Haven, Connecticut and Springfield, Massachusetts on the Hartford line, with the Vermonter operating as an extended version of the service, originating in New York and terminating in St. Albans, Vermont. In London, intercity and long-distance rail service is operated by different companies depending on where in the country the train runs to. Great Western Railway runs to the west of England and Wales out of Paddington, including the Night Riviera sleeper train to Cornwall. Avanti West Coast operates trains to Birmingham, the Northwest, and Scotland via the West Coast Main Line out of Euston. Caledonian Sleeper operates 2 night trains to Scotland as an alternative to the day trains, also out of Euston. East Midlands Railway operates intercity services to Nottingham and Sheffield out of St. Pancras International. On the East Coast Main Line to the Northeast and Scotland out of King's Cross, London North Eastern Railway operates the main service, with Grand Central, Lumo, and Hull trains operating competing services. Greater Anglia operates trains to Norwich out of Liverpool Street. Lastly, Eurostar operates international trains out of St. Pancras International to France and Belgium via High Speed 1 and the Channel Tunnel. London has better frequency, with services operating several times per day and going to more places than New York, where only the regional trains operate multiple times per day, and not all of them do. We next move to commuter and regional rail. In this category, I include intercity services in London that don't travel far from Greater London, like those to Southend, Portsmouth, Brighton, and Cambridge. New York City has 3 commuter railroads: New Jersey Transit Rail Operations, Long Island Railroad, and Metro-North Commuter Railroad. New Jersey Transit operates commuter rail service out of Newark Penn Station, and Hoboken Terminal, spreading all across the state of New Jersey and a little bit into New York. Something I forgot to mention in the original script is Secaucus Junction. Secaucus Junction serves as the transfer point between NJT's 2 divisions, making it a station worth mentioning. The Long Island Railroad operates out of New York Penn Station, Long Island City/Hunters Point Avenue, and Grand Central Madison, a new extension to Grand Central Terminal. Almost all services run through and stop at Jamaica, which is an important shoulder station. Additionally, a shuttle service operates between Jamaica and Atlantic Terminal in Brooklyn. The railroad covers the entirety of Long Island, although there is no circumferential service, which is left up to the local bus operators. A fun fact about the LIRR is that it is the oldest railroad in the U.S. still operating under its original name and charter, being founded in 1834 and beginning operations in 1836. Lastly, Metro-North operates trains out of Grand Central Terminal to places in Connecticut and New York to the north of New York City. The MTA owns and operates the LIRR and owns and operates the parts of the MNCR in New York State. The Connecticut Department of Transportation owns the lines at some of the rolling stock in Connecticut, but the MTA still operates the trains on their behalf. West of the Hudson River, MNCR has limited operations. The NJT Pascack Valley Line runs into New York State, and NJT operates service in New York under contract to the MNCR. The Port Jervis Line runs along the NJT's main line before continuing onto its own tracks in New York State. Metro-North leases the track from Norfolk Southern, a freight operator, and contracts the operation of the line to New Jersey Transit. Both of these lines operate from Hoboken Terminal, with MNCR providing some of the rolling stock and NJT providing the rest. In addition to these railroads, CT also operates the Shoreline East service from New Haven Union Station to New London along the Northeast Corridor. This service does not serve New York City proper, but New Haven is in what I have defined as the New York metro area, so I have included it. The other service operated by CT is the Hartford line service to Springfield, Massachusetts, which is operated in conjunction with Amtrak and also departs from New Haven Union Station. The first of London's many operators is the Elizabeth Line, which runs from Reading and Heathrow Airport to Shenfield and Abbey Wood via a new downtown tunnel. This line operates like the RER in Paris, running like a high-speed metro in the city center and like regional rail in the suburbs. The other TfL-operated service is the London Overground, which is a collection of suburban rail lines that were taken over by TfL and spruced up. These lines offer mostly circumferential service, and each line acts relatively independently of the others, despite partially sharing rolling stock. The rest of the operators fall under the umbrella of National Rail, along with the intercity operators, and there is some overlap here. Southeastern operates services to places like Dover, Canterbury, Hastings, and Dartford, including high-speed services along High Speed 1, as well as suburban services. These services depart from Charing Cross, Cannon Street, London Bridge, Victoria, and Blackfriars, with high-speed services departing from St. Pancras International. Southwestern Railway operates services to Weymouth, Portsmouth, and Alton, along with suburban services departing from Waterloo. Great Western Railway operates suburban services to Reading, Didcot Parkway, Newbury, and more out of Paddington. Chiltern Railways runs to places like Birmingham, Aylesbury, and Oxford out of Marylebone. West Midlands Trains operate services out of Euston under the London North Western Railway brand to places like Tring, Milton Keynes, Crewe, and Birmingham. East Midlands Railway operates the EMR Connect/Luton Airport Express to Luton Airport and Corby out of St Pancras. Greater Anglia operates services out of Liverpool Street to Ipswich, Southend, Colchester, Hartford, Cambridge, Ely, and more. C2C operates trains out of Fenchurch Street to Tilbury, Southend, and Shoeburyness. The last operator, Govia Thammeslink Railway, has 4 brands that it operates service under. We'll go over 3 here and save the 4th for later. Southern operates trains out of London Victoria and London Bridge to places like Brighton and Littlehampton. Southern additionally operates a weird service from Watford Junction to East Croydon. Great Northern operates out of the Northern City Line and King's Cross to Ely, Letchworth Garden City, Welwyn Garden City, Cambridge, and more. The last service is Thameslink, which operates as a north-south crosstown route similar to and older than the Elizabeth Line. The first point of comparison between the two cities' main line, Intercity and commuter trains we'll look at is electrification. Electrification is a system of electric power used by trains. Both cities' railroads lack complete electrification, although London has a significantly higher proportion of its tracks electrified. In New York, the LIRR is almost completely electrified on the east side of the island, with the exception being the Oyster Bay branch. On the west end of the island, the electrification ends and diesel trains operate. Due to restrictions on diesel locomotives in Penn Station, the LIRR operates a fleet of dual-mode locomotives. The railroad's electrification system is 750-volt DC top-contact covered third rail. This means that there are pickup shoes mounted to the bogies or wheel assemblies, and these come into contact with a third or conductor rail to provide power to the trains. DC, or direct current, is older than AC, at least when used in railway electrification, and is better optimized for shorter distances. Metro-North has a similar electrification pattern. The inner part of the railroad is electrified, while the outer parts are not. The MNCR has 2 electrification schemes. The Hudson and Harlem lines are electrified using 750-volt DC bottom contact third rail, while the New Haven line is electrified with 12.5 kV 60 Hz AC overhead wire. In an overhead wire electrification system, a pantograph mounted to the top of the train comes into contact with a wire or wires suspended above the rails to draw power. AC, or alternating current, is newer than DC, at least when used in railway electrification, and is better adapted for longer distances. New Haven line trains are dual mode, being able to operate on the overhead wires and third rail, since the tracks into Grand Central only have third rail. MNCR also operates a fleet of dual-mode locomotives so diesel services can operate into Grand Central, which has similar restrictions to Penn Station. NJT has 2 electrification schemes, although both use overhead wires. Newark Division lines use Amtrak's 12 kV 25 Hz AC electrification scheme, while trains on the Hoboken Division use a more standard 25 kV 60 Hz electrification scheme. All NJT electric rolling stock, with the exception of the aging Aero 3s, are compatible with both schemes. NJT also operates a fleet of diesel and dual-mode locomotives for service in unelectrified territories. Lastly is Amtrak. Between the southern border of the metro area and New Rochelle, Amtrak uses their 12 kV 25 Hz overhead wire system. Between New Rochelle and New Haven Union Station, CT owns the tracks and uses their own 12.5 kV 60 Hz scheme. Services along the Empire Corridor use 750-volt DC top contact covered third rail until they merge with the Metro-North Railroad, at which point they switch to diesel. When Amtrak takes delivery of its new trains, the third rail will go out of use as these new trains will use batteries for this short stretch. Hartford line service is not electrified, while Shoreline East and Amtrak trains north of New Haven use a newer 25 kV 60 Hz AC scheme. Electrification in London can roughly be split between areas north of the River Thames and areas to the south of the river. Roughly speaking, lines to the north of the river are electrified with overhead lines at the standard 25 kV 50 Hz AC, while lines to the south of the river are electrified with 750-volt DC top contact uncovered third rail. Most services within Greater London are electrified, with the biggest exception being the Chiltern Railway services out of London Marylebone. This pattern of electrification is a quirk of history, as the Southern Railway, which controlled both the lines south of the river, electrified early with third rail, whereas the lines to the north of the river were electrified more recently after the potential dangers and shortfalls of third rail had been exposed. Exceptions to this rule are the Northern City Line, which uses third rail despite being north of the river, due to it originally being an underground line, and High Speed 1, which runs south of the river but uses overhead lines because it was built relatively recently. Third rail has fallen out of favor in modern construction due to safety concerns, and because High Speed Rail requires overhead lines. Overall, London has a greater proportion of its lines electrified than New York does. The next point of comparison is coverage. All of New York's commuter railroads are very radial in nature, getting people from the suburbs to the central city, but not from suburb to suburb, unless the suburbs are both along the same route into the city. The railway lines north of the Thames are also like this, with the exception of London Overground lines, whereas lines to the south of the river are a little more circumferential due to competing railway companies fighting to get lines wherever they could stick them. Additionally, London's regional trains tend to operate more frequently than their New York City counterparts. There are size differences between the mainline trains in New York and London. We'll take a look at 3 rolling stock models to see this. The Long Island Railroad's M7 and the Metro North's M7A electric multiple units, built by Bombardier, are 85 feet long, 10 feet 6 inches wide, and 13 feet 3 inches tall, with a floor height of 4 feet 3 inches. The multi-level coaches, also built by Bombardier, used by New Jersey Transit, are the same length as the M7s, slightly narrower at 10 feet and slightly taller at 14 feet 6 inches. These trains are considered small by North American standards due to the relatively tight clearances in Penn Station and Grand Central. For the United Kingdom, we'll look at the Bombardier and Alstom Adventure family, consisting of the following classes: 345 for Elizabeth Line, 701 for Southwestern Railway, 710 for London Overground, 720 for C2C and Greater Anglia, and 730 for West Midlands trains. Car lengths for this family range from 65 feet 7 inches to 79 feet 5 inches. Cars are 9 feet 1 inch wide and 12 feet 4 inches tall, with a floor height of 3 feet 9.1 inches. The New York trains are slightly larger than their London counterparts, although this little difference matters a lot in terms of floor space and therefore capacity. London's and the UK's loading gauge, how large trains can be, is too small to support bi-level trains, while New York trains can be bi-level with just 2 feet of extra height. That does it for our look at mainline trains in both cities, so now we turn to metros. London and New York both have a main metro system, New York City Subway and London Underground, while New York has 2 smaller systems, Staten Island Railway and PATH, and London has a secondary light metro system, Docklands Light Railway. We'll compare the subway and the tube first, then take a look at the smaller systems. The New York City Subway is one of the oldest rapid transit systems in the world, with the first elevated sections now demolished, opening in 1868, and the first underground section opening in 1904. Ridership for 2024 was 2.05 billion. Ridership is the total amount of trips made on a given system in a year. This counts each time the same person uses the system individually. The system has 472 or 423 stations, depending on how you count them, along 248 miles of track, and has 28 services and 36 lines. The subway operates much like a mainline railroad and therefore differentiates between lines, defined as the physical infrastructure, and services, defined as the routes taken by trains in regular operation. All services pass through Manhattan on so-called trunk lines, with the exception of the G, the Franklin Avenue and Rockaway Park shuttles. Major stations include the 42nd Street Complex, Fulton Street, Chambers Street World Trade Center, Atlantic Avenue Barclays Center, the 234th Street Penn Stations, 42nd Street Grand Central, and Coney Island Stowell Avenue. The trunk lines, as well as other lines in Brooklyn and Queens, have 4 tracks, 2 for local service and 2 for express service, once again much like a mainline railroad. Express service is an integral part of the system. This is either full-time service on quad-track lines or peak direction-only service on triple-track lines. The system operates 24/7, with almost every station seeing 24-hour service, and has done so for so long that there is not enough yard space to store all their trains. The subway has 2 divisions that have different loading gauges and are therefore not compatible with each other. Work trains are built to the smaller loading gauge, and electrification and signaling is the same between both systems, so they can run in both divisions with ease. The A division includes all the numbered services and the 42nd Street Shuttle. This division is the older of the two and was originally the Interborough Rapid Transit Company, or IRT, which the division is still sometimes known as to this day. Their trains are smaller due to the lines being older. The B division consists of all the lettered services, plus the Rockaway Park and Franklin Avenue shuttles. These lines were once part of the Brooklyn Manhattan Transit Company, BMT, and the city-owned Independent Subway Company, IND, although both companies built their lines to the same specifications. All 3 companies' lines are relatively independent from one another, with a few exceptions. The subway has intense interlining, meaning multiple services sharing the same tracks. These are most prominent on the Manhattan trunk lines, which is what gives the services their colors. Multiple services share these trunks, with the exception of the 7, G, and L through Manhattan, with some operating local and some operating express. There is also reverse interlining, where services from 2 different trunk lines interline in the suburbs. This is most prominent on the Queens Boulevard line, which sees services from 3 different trunk lines. This interlining can lead to cascading delays, as a delay on one service affects another service, which affects yet another service, etc. The system provides extensive coverage in Brooklyn, the Bronx, and Manhattan, with the Transit Desert in Queens, and no service on Staten Island. Similar to the commuter railroads, there isn't that much circumferential or crosstown service, although there is some, especially in Manhattan. The subway is owned by the City of New York and operated by the New York City Transit Authority, a subsidiary of the MTA. The London Underground, similar to the subway, has two distinct divisions. The subsurface lines, District, Metropolitan, Circle, and Hammersmith and City, are older, with the Metropolitan being the oldest metro in the world, opening in 1863, and have bigger trains, which are comparable in size to a British mainline train. The deep-level lines, Northern, Central, Piccadilly, Bakerloo, Waterloo and City, Victoria, and Jubilee, are newer and have smaller trains that run deep underground. The oldest of these lines, the City and South London Railway, now part of the Northern Line, opened in 1890. The system has 272 stations, less than New York, along 250 miles of track, making the tube slightly longer than the subway. Ridership for 2024 was 1.181 billion, meaning it sees less annual riders than the subway. Major stations on the Underground include Earl's Court, Bank, King's Cross St. Pancras, Euston, Victoria, and Waterloo. Uniquely for a rapid transit system, the Underground shares track with mainline services in a few places, most notably the Chiltern Railway's trains running over Metropolitan Line track. The subsurface lines are heavily interlined, like the New York City subway, while the deep-level lines are not interlined at all. The Underground sees some express service, but not nearly to the same level as New York. Each line on the system was built by a separate company, but in practice, many of the companies were subsidiaries of larger companies. They were all unified under and nationalized under the London Transport brand in 1933. Today, the system is owned and operated by Transport for London, which is a successor to London Transport. 5 Underground lines operate overnight on Friday and Saturday nights, but compared to New York's near 100% 24/7 coverage, this is nothing. The Underground mostly serves the north of London, while serving the southwest due to the less ideal soil to the south of the River Thames. The Underground is fairly radial in nature, similar to the subway, although the Circle Line provides a nice circumferential service around central London. Moving on from the main metro systems, we will discuss London's light metro system, the Docklands Light Railway. This system opened in 1987 as part of the redevelopment of London's Docklands to the east of the city and was a cheaper alternative to extending the Underground. To cut costs, the system utilizes lots of disused railway infrastructure, which fell out of use as the docks declined due to containerization reducing the usefulness of the Port of London. Today, the system has an annual ridership of 98.9 million, has 45 stations across 24 miles of track, and has 6 service patterns, although they are not designated in any way. The tube map shows the system as one color, while the DLR maps use different colors to differentiate the service patterns. The system primarily serves East London, with connections to Central London and South London, with major stations at Bank, Poplar, Stratford, and Canning Town. And Canary Wharf. New York has 2 smaller metro systems. First is PATH, short for Port Authority Trans-Hudson. The system opened in 1908 as the Hudson and Manhattan Railroad and was taken over by the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey in 1962 and renamed to PATH. The system has 13 stations, 5 lines, and 13.8 miles of track, connecting Manhattan to the urban areas of the Hudson waterfront. 4 lines operate during the day, while only 2 operate at night. In 2024, it saw 62.5 million riders. The major stations are World Trade Center, Exchange Place, and Hoboken. Interestingly, the system is regulated as a mainline railroad by the Federal Railroad Administration instead of as transit under the Federal Transit Administration. This is due to the system sharing a bridge with the Northeast Corridor. This means train crews have to be FRA certified, which is stricter than FTA certification. Last for metro systems is the Staten Island Railway, operating exclusively on Staten Island's east coast. The system has 1 line, 21 stations, and 14 miles of track. Ridership in 2024 was 4.7 million. The most important station on the line is St. George Terminal, where a transfer is available to the Staten Island Ferry to Manhattan. The railway was incorporated in 1851 and began operations in 1860 as a mainline railroad. It later became part of several larger railroad companies until coming under the ownership of the Staten Island Rapid Transit Operating Authority, a subsidiary of the MTA, and is operated by NYC Transit. Both PATH and the SIR operate 24/7 like the New York City subway. The first point of comparison is coverage and frequency. The Underground and DLR generally operate more frequently than the New York City subway, Staten Island Railway, and especially PATH. London Underground and DLR trains arrive every few minutes, with the Victoria Line operating every 100 seconds during rush hour, while frequencies in New York can vary wildly from every few minutes to every 30 minutes or even longer overnights. Both city systems provide good coverage in the areas of operation, with the exception of Queens and New York, which is a transit desert. All 5 systems are very radial in nature, meaning there is lots of service between the suburbs and the city center, but little service between different areas of the suburbs. The second point of comparison between these 5 systems is automation. Railway automation is divided into different grades of automation, or GOAs. GOA 0 is no automation. GOA 1 sees limited automation in the form of computerized train protection systems. GOA 2 is semi-automatic operation with the train driving itself, but an operator sitting in the cab to operate the doors and manually operate the train in an emergency. In GOA 3, the trains are fully automated, but there is still a staff member on board to operate the doors, serve in a customer service role, and drive the train in an emergency, although these trains lack a cab. Last is GOA 4, which is when the train drives itself and no staff members need to be on board the train. The Staten Island Railway and most of the New York City subway operate at GOA 0, as do the Bakerloo, Waterloo and City, and Piccadilly lines of the Underground. Most of the National Rail network in London also uses GOA 0. The mainline railroads in New York and trains on High Speed 1 in London use various forms of in-cab signaling and protection, meaning they operate at GOA 1. Additionally, parts of the New York City subway formerly operated under GOA 1 when Communications-Based Train Control, CBTC, was first installed on the Queens Boulevard line. CBTC allows for full automation, but the system was only used as an in-cab signaling system for the first few years of operation. As of March 2024, GOA 2 is in effect on the western portion of the line. The remaining lines of the Underground use GOA 2, as does all of PATH and the western portion of the Queens Boulevard line, seeing service from the E, F, M, and R trains, the Flushing line, 7 train, the Canarsie line, L train. The 8th Avenue, A, C, and E, Crosstown, G, Culver, F, and Piccadilly lines all have plans in place to implement GOA 2 in the future. Only 4 sections of mainline rail in London use GOA 2, while there is no mainline GOA 2 in New York. Those sections are the Thameslink Core section, the Elizabeth Line Core section, the Northern City Line, and the Heathrow Airport branch. Last is the DLR, which operates on GOA 3, with none of the systems operating on GOA 4. Automation allows for very frequent trains, as is exemplified by the Victoria Line, which during rush hours sees a train every 100 seconds, meaning that as train A is pulling out of the station, train B is about to pull in. As a smaller point of comparison, New York subway uses 2-person crews, while London's systems use 1-person crews. We'll next look at electrification. All 5 systems are fully electrified. The London Underground uses a unique 4-rail system. In most electrification schemes, power is drawn from the third rail or overhead wire, and the return is fed through the running rails. Due to concerns over the tight clearances in the Underground's tunnels, it was electrified with a 4th rail to carry the return current. The system later spread to the subsurface lines as well to maintain uniformity. The rails are top contact coverless and carry 630 or 750 volts DC. PATH and the Staten Island Railway are both electrified using top contact covered third rail at 600 volts DC. The DLR uses bottom contact third rail electrified at 750 volts DC, and the New York City subway uses top contact covered third rail at 625 volts DC. Bottom contact third rail is a safer and more reliable alternative to the more mainstream top contact third rail, as the third rail is automatically protected from people stepping on it, and the electrified part being on the underside prevents the accumulation of snow, debris, and water. The last point of comparison is rolling stock size. For the Underground steep level lines, we'll look at the 2009 stock, built by Bombardier as part of the Movia family. These trains are used on the Victoria line and are 55 feet 4.67 inches long, 8 feet 10 inches wide, and 9 feet 5.5 inches tall. Other deep-level rolling stock have similar dimensions. The subsurface lines all use the S-stock, also part of the Movia family. The S-stock are 57 feet 2.57 inches, or 50 feet 7.64 inches long, depending on car type, 9 feet 7 inches wide, and 12 feet 0.96 inches tall, with a floor height of 39.6 inches. This puts them at roughly the same size as a mainline British train. The R211s of the New York City Subway's B division, used on the A, C, and G trains, and the Staten Island Railway, built by Kawasaki, are 60.21 feet long, 10 feet wide, and 12 feet tall with a floor height of 3.76 inches. This puts them at roughly the same size as subsurface line and British mainline trains. The B Division and Staten Island Railway also operate cars like the R68, built by Westinghouse and used on the B, D, N, Q, W, and Franklin Avenue shuttle, which are the same height and width as the R211s, with 74 feet 8.5 inches long. For the subway's A Division, we will look at the R188s, used on the 7 and also built by Kawasaki. These cars are 51 feet 4 inches long, 8 feet 7.188 inches wide, and 11 feet 10.625 inches tall, with a floor height of 3 feet 7.75 inches, making them shorter in length, about the same width, and taller than a deep-level tube train. PATH's PA5 trains, built by Kawasaki and based on the subway's R142A, are 49 feet 2.551 inches long, 9 feet 2.236 inches wide, and 11 feet 9.732 inches tall, making them roughly the same size as an A-division train. Last is the DLR, which uses a fleet of 2-segment articulated units based off of Stadtbahn trains from Germany. Each car is 93 feet 2.125 inches long, 8 feet 8.325 inches wide, and between 11 feet 4.65 inches and 11 feet 6.25 inches tall, with a floor height of 3 feet 4.5 inches. Typically, older systems like the A Division and deep-level tube lines have smaller trains due to the people in charge not knowing how big trains needed to be and to reduce costs. The DLR is new with small trains because it was built as light rail, which means smaller everything to cut costs. The last rail mode we'll look at for now is light rail / streetcars / trams. New York has two systems, one in Newark, Newark Light Rail, and one in Hudson County, Hudson-Bergen Light Rail in New Jersey. London has one, London Trams, serving South London, especially the Croydon area. We'll start with the oldest of the three systems, which is Newark Light Rail. The system has 17 stations across 6.2 miles of track with two services. Ridership for 2024 was 4.9 million. Major stations are Newark Penn Station and Broad Street. The older Newark subway, opened in 1935, operates as a semi-metro, which is when streetcars run in metro-like conditions, and the newer Broad Street extension, opened in 2006, operates as a streetcar or tram. The subway is one of the few legacy streetcar systems that wasn't completely demolished in the U.S., along with cities like Boston, Philadelphia, San Francisco, and New Orleans. The system connects different parts of New York together, including Newark Penn Station and Newark Broad Street, two important stations on New Jersey Transit's commuter rail system, and in the case of Newark Penn, Amtrak services. The Hudson-Bergen Light Rail opened in 2000 and now has 24 stations across 17 miles of track with 4 services. Ridership for 2024 was 14.8 million. 3 of these services operate all day, and 1 operates as a rush-hour-only express service. Major stations are Hoboken and Exchange Place, where transfers are available to PATH and New Jersey Transit commuter rail. The system connects to different areas of Hudson County, including Hoboken and Jersey City. The HBLR operates in a mix of on-street running and grade-separated alignments, but all at grade. On-street running is when a train runs in the street mixed in with road traffic, and grade separation is when the vehicle runs in its own right-of-way. At grade is when the vehicle runs at the same level as the ground, as opposed to elevated on the viaduct or underground in the tunnel. London Trams, otherwise known as the Croydon Tramlink, is a light rail system serving South London that also opened in 2000. It is the first tram in Greater London since 1952, when the last of the legacy trams closed. The system has 39 stops on 17 miles of track with 3 services, although similar to the DLR, the services are not designated in any way and are only shown separately on tram-specific maps. The system saw a ridership of 20 million between April 2023 and March 2024. Major stops include West Croydon and Wimbledon, where connections to national rail services can be made. Similar to HBLR, the system has a mix of grade-separated and mixed traffic running, although unlike HBLR, the London Trams uses old railway alignments, similar again to the DLR. The system connects part of South London, especially Croydon, that were historically underserved by rail transit, filling in a major transit desert. London Trams and HBLR are quite similar, with the exception of London Trams using old railway alignments. Meanwhile, the Newark Light Rail is different, owing to it being a legacy streetcar system. All 3 systems use the same electrification system, 750 volts DC overhead line. Both the Newark Light Rail and HBLR use the same rolling stock, light rail vehicles manufactured by Kinky Chariot. They come in 3-section and 5-section articulated cars that clock in at 90 feet or 124 feet 9.6 inches long, 8 feet 9.48 inches wide, and 12 feet 3.24 inches tall, with a floor height of 15.7 inches and 34 inches depending on which section of the car you are in. One of the rolling stock models used on the London Trams is the CR4000, manufactured by Bombardier. These are 3-segment articulated cars that are 98 feet 9 inches long, 8 feet 8 inches wide, and 12 feet tall, with a floor height of 13.8 inches or 15.7 inches depending on what section of the car you are in. Next, we turn to cable-hauled transit, of which both cities each have 1 line. New York has the Roosevelt Island Tramway, which connects Roosevelt Island to the rest of Manhattan over the East River, and London has the IFS Cloud Cable Car, otherwise known as the Dangleway or simply the London Cable Car, that connects Greenwich to the Docklands across the River Thames. The similarities end there, as each line uses a different type of cable haulage. The Roosevelt Island Tramway is an aerial tramway where 2 cables are used for support and a third is used to move the vehicles. 2 vehicles each have their own cable, meaning that the vehicles are independent of each other, unlike many aerial tramways. The tramway is 3,140 feet long and is 250 feet tall when it was manufactured by Von Roll. The London Cable Car is a gondola lift, which features a loop of cable that multiple cabins are attached to. These cabins are able to detach from the cable for unloading and unloading, allowing them to move slower. The line features a continuous chain of small cabins, as opposed to the Roosevelt Island Tramway, which uses 2 large cabins. The Dangleway only uses 1 cable, as opposed to the tramway's 3, or really 6. The line is 3,600 feet long and 300 feet tall and was built by double-mile cable car. While the Roosevelt Island Tramway is widely considered to be very successful, with 2.1 million passengers in fiscal year 2023, the London Cable Car is very controversial due to budget overruns and the fact that the stations are not connected to any other modes of transport, thus requiring a walk outside to make a transfer. The stations are also not near destinations that people want to go, other than maybe tourists, leading to a lower ridership of 1.5 million in 2023. Now we'll look at ferries, of which New York has significantly more than London. We'll first look at NYC Ferry. They operate 8 routes, 2 of which are seasonal, throughout New York City, operating on frequencies varying from every 20 minutes to hourly. The ferries cover all 5 boroughs of New York City, providing alternate travel options to the subway and buses. The system has 38 boats and 25 terminals and saw 6.3 million passengers in 2022. Arguably the most famous ferry in New York City is the Staten Island Ferry, transporting people from Whitehall Terminal in Lower Manhattan to St. George Terminal on Staten Island. The service operates every 15 to 30 minutes and completes the trip in 25 minutes. The ferry is owned and operated by the City of New York and is fare-free. Ridership for 2024 was 16.69 million people. New York Waterway operates commuter services between New York and New Jersey, offering an alternative to the road crossings of the Hudson River. The company only operates rush hour and limited weekend service and saw a ridership of roughly 5 million people in 2022. Statue City Cruises operates the only legitimate ferry to the Statue of Liberty and Ellis Island, departing from Battery Park in Manhattan and Liberty State Park in New Jersey. Seastreak operates ferry services between Highlands and Atlantic Highlands in New Jersey and Manhattan. They also operate a seasonal service to Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket in Massachusetts. The Port Jefferson Ferry runs between Port Jefferson on Long Island and Bridgeport in Connecticut with a 1-hour, 15-minute journey time. The North Ferry transports people between Greenport and Shelter Island, while the South Ferry transports people in cars between North Haven and Shelter Island. These are the only land-ish connections Shelter Island has to the rest of the country, as there are no bridges leading to the island. The Cross Sound Ferry provides passenger and car transportation between Orient on Long Island and New London, Connecticut. The Fishers Island Ferry provides service between Fishers Island and New London. There is no service direct from Fishers Island to the rest of Suffolk County. Viking Fleet operates ferry services from Montauk to Block Island, Rhode Island, and New London. The Village of Bellport operates a semi-seasonal ferry service from Bellport to Ho-Hum Beach on Fire Island. The Davis Park Ferry operates seasonal service between Patchogue and Davis Park and Watch Hill on Fire Island. When the ferry doesn't operate, the only way to reach these places is if you own your own boat. Sayville Ferry Service operates 4 ferry routes from Sayville to various places on Fire Island. Fire Island Water Taxi provides on-demand service to the more populous areas of Fire Island. Last but not least, Fire Island Ferries provide service from Bayshore to various points on Fire Island. New York completely blows London out of the water, no pun intended, with its ferry services. Meanwhile, Transport for London operates 4 river bus and 1 ferry service. The river buses transport people to different places along the River Thames, similar to NYC Ferry, while the Woolwich Ferry is a car and passenger ferry transporting people across the River Thames at Woolwich, providing one of the few river crossings in East London. There are 2 other smaller ferries that operate outside of TfL in the west. The Hampton Ferry operates between March and October and links Hampton and Mouseleyhurst. The ferry transports passengers and bikes and operates on demand and has been in operation since 1514. The Hammerton's Ferry serves pedestrians and bicycles near Twickenham and Ham and has been in operation since 1909. The third to last thing we will cover is intercity and commuter buses. New York has 2 main commuter and intercity bus stations, the Port Authority Bus Terminal, the busiest bus terminal in the world, and the George Washington Bridge Bus Station, both in Manhattan. The Port Authority Bus Terminal has a neat trick up its sleeve, and that is the exclusive bus lane. This is a bus-only lane on Route 495 and the Lincoln Tunnel that allows buses to bypass traffic. The lane links directly into the PABT for maximum convenience. The lane still sees bumper-to-bumper traffic due to the PABT operating above its maximum capacity. Additionally, a few intercity bus operators stop outside New York Penn Station. Due to the very large number of bus operators in New York, we'll only look at the major players. The first operator in New York is New Jersey Transit, which operates over 70 commuter routes from the PABT and the GWBS to points across New Jersey. The MTA operates 80 express bus routes, mostly from Staten Island to Manhattan, with some service from the outer boroughs to Manhattan. Peter Pan Bus operates services to points across the Northeast and especially Massachusetts from the PABT. Coach USA, through its subsidiaries, operates commuter service from throughout the New York metro area. Spanish Transportation operates commuter services to New Jersey using jitneys, also known as dollar vans, which are small buses and vans operating along a flexible route between 2 points. Greyhound, the main intercity bus operator in the U.S., provides services to places across the country from New York City, as do Flixbus and Megabus. Similar to New York, London has a few major coach operators as well as several smaller ones. The biggest coach station in London is the Victoria Coach Station, adjacent to London Victoria Station on the National Rail Network. National Express is the biggest intercity operator, with Megabus providing some competition. Flixbus is the largest international operator, with services running to mainland Europe. Green Line is a major medium-distance and commuter network operating bus service to the counties adjacent to Greater London. Both cities have large intercity bus networks, while New York City also has a well-developed commuter bus system. London has a better-developed regional rail system, reducing the need for commuter buses. It's also interesting to note that Megabus and Flixbus both operate in both cities, although the Megabus that operates in New York is technically a different company from the Megabus that operates in London. We next move on to city buses, starting with express and bus rapid transit services. Bus rapid transit, or BRT, is theoretically when a bus runs with metro or light rail characteristics, including bigger stations that are spaced further apart, grid separation, and transit signal priority, where traffic lights are programmed to give green lights to transit vehicles. I say theoretically because oftentimes systems that are claimed to be BRT don't have enough of the characteristics of rapid transit to be considered true BRT. This is known as BRT light or BRT creep. Both of the BRT systems in New York qualify as BRT light rather than full BRT. New Jersey Transit operates the GO bus network in Newark, which consists of 2 routes. While the service has some of the requirements of BRT, like dedicated stations, it lacks other features like being able to pay your fare outside the bus. The other BRT light system is the MTA Select Bus service. This is a network of 20 express bus routes that have some BRT features, like paying your fare outside the bus, dedicated bus lanes, and transit signal priority. The network lacks other features such as grade separation and high speeds. London's BRT system, East London Transit, consists of 3 routes in the Thames Gateway area of London that fill in a transit desert. I would also qualify these routes as BRT light, as they lack full grade separation and other features that full BRT has. As far as express buses go, the MTA operates some limited stop routes throughout the city proper, while TfL has the Superloop network. This is a network of 10 bus routes that encircle London and the suburbs, providing a much-needed circumferential connection for the city. The biggest category of local bus for both cities is the standard city bus. In New York City, the city itself is served by the MTA, while New Jersey is served by NJT and Connecticut is served by CTRail. The remaining counties in New York each have their own bus operators, and some of the towns within those counties also maintain their own bus systems. None of the systems share fare payment systems with one another, and are therefore isolated systems. The bus network is very comprehensive in New York City, the Hudson waterfront, Newark, and Westchester and Nassau counties. But once you start moving out into the further suburbs, the bus coverage begins to drop off significantly. It is also worth mentioning the jitney or dollar van service that operates in the Hudson waterfront in Brooklyn and Queens. These privately run services fill in the gaps left by NJT and the MTA. In London, most bus service is overseen by TfL, while the actual operation is contracted out to private companies, as is operation of the Overground and Elizabeth line. While private companies operate the services, they all fall under the TfL umbrella and therefore have the same bus models, the same payment schemes, and the same fare system, making it feel like one unified system for the whole of Greater London. Bus coverage is pretty good throughout the city, especially in central London. TfL also operates an extensive night bus service, providing nice overnight transit options. Overall, I'd say that London has a much better bus system than New York does, mainly because New York's is so disjointed. The last area of comparison is public transit links to airports. In order to discuss this, we must first look at the commercial airports in the 2 cities. New York has 3 main airports and 4 secondary airports. John F. Kennedy International Airport in Queens is one of the world's major international hubs, seeing service from 100 airlines in 50-plus countries. Newark Liberty International Airport in Newark is also an international gateway and is the first major commercial airport in North America. LaGuardia Airport, also located in Queens, is smaller than the other 2 airports and only handles flights within a 1,500-mile radius of New York, with the exception of Denver. This is to help control congestion in New York's airspace, which is among the most crowded in the world. New York additionally has 4 secondary airports that act as relievers for the big 3. Long Island MacArthur Airport is located in Ronkonkoma and sees service from several low-cost carriers. Stewart International Airport is in Orange County, New York, and sees service to the southeastern U.S. as well as Iceland. Trenton Mercer Airport is just outside Trenton, New Jersey, seeing service from Frontier Airlines. Last is Westchester County Airport in Westchester County, New York, which sees service to areas in the southeastern United States, Chicago, and New England. London has 6 airports, although most of them are technically outside of Greater London. They are still included in this video as they are considered London airports. London Heathrow is located in Hillingdon in the west of London and is one of Europe's major air hubs. London City Airport, located in the Docklands, is very small due to its location. As such, it can only handle small airliners and therefore only sees short hop flights to mainland Europe. London Gatwick Airport in West Sussex acts as a secondary, although still busy, airport to Heathrow. Luton Airport is located in Bedfordshire and serves low-cost carriers. London Stansted Airport is in Essex and serves as the main hub base for Ryanair. Last is London Southend Airport, also in Essex, which sees service to mainland Europe, operating as a major hub for EasyJet. JFK is connected to the LRRR and subway via the AirTrain JFK, which costs $8.50 one way. At Jamaica, passengers can connect to almost all LRRR services, the EJ trains to the subway, and a major local bus station. At Howard Beach, passengers can connect to the A train. Additionally, the Q3 bus serves Terminal 8, and Q10 and B15 serve the Lefferts Boulevard AirTrain stop. Newark Liberty is connected to the Amtrak Keystone Service and Northeast Regional and NJT Northeast Corridor Line and North Jersey Coastline trains at Newark Liberty International Airport Station via the AirTrain Newark. NJT's Go Bus 28 BRT Lite provides service to downtown Newark, and several local buses also serve the airport. Express buses to Manhattan are provided by Olympia Trails. LaGuardia lacks a rail connection and is instead served by the M60 SBS to Manhattan, the LaGuardia Link Q70 SBS to Jackson Heights Roosevelt Avenue on the 7E, F, and M and R trains of the subway, and the local routes Q47, Q48, Q70, and Q72. Long Island MacArthur is connected to the LIRR's Ronkonkoma branch and Greenport Scoot via a shuttle bus. Suffolk County Transit's Route 6 provides bus service to other parts of the county, as well as Central Islip on the Ronkonkoma branch and Patchogue on the Montauk branch of the LIRR. Last is Hampton Jitney, which operates service along the Long Island Expressway. Stewart is served by Coach USA and Newburgh Bus. At Trenton Mercer, NJT's Route 608 provides connections to SEPTA's West Trenton Line at West Trenton and SEPTA's Trenton Line, NJT's Northeast Corridor Line and River Line, Amtrak services, and NJT bus services at the Trenton Transit Center. Westchester is served by the B-Line bus system's Route 12, which provides service to the White Plains Trans Center and the adjacent White Plains station on the MNCR's Harlem Line. New York's airport connections are lacking in multiple respects. Most airports lack direct rail service, and the three that do have a direct connection require a transfer to a shuttle, which is very inconvenient. In London, all 6 airports have a direct rail connection. Heathrow is served by the Heathrow Express non-stop service to Paddington. The Underground's Piccadilly Line and the Elizabeth Line round out the rail connections to Heathrow. These services also act as the main method of getting between terminals, which are spread far apart. As such, the stations serving Heathrow Airport constitute a fare-free zone. Additionally, TfL operates many bus routes to Heathrow, which has a major bus station located adjacent to Terminals 2 and 3. Several coach operators provide long-distance and express service to the airport. London City has its own station on the Docklands Light Railway and sees service from TfL's 473 and 474 bus routes. Additionally, river bus services stop at a pier near the airport. Gatwick is served by trains from Southern, Thameslink, Great Western Railway, and the fourth of Go-Get Thameslink Railway's brands, Gatwick Express. Gatwick Express operates non-stop service to London, Victoria, and Brighton. National Express operates coach service to Heathrow and Stansted, as well as locations throughout the region. A few other coach operators and local buses serve the airport as well. Luton is served by the Luton Airport Parkway Station, with service from East Midlands Railway and Thameslink via the Luton Airport Dart People Mover. Local buses also serve the airport. Stansted has its own station served by Greater Anglia Stansted Express non-stop service to London and Liverpool Street and cross-country services to Birmingham. Similar to the other airports, coach and local buses serve Stansted. Southend has a station served by Greater Anglia trains with service to London Liverpool Street and local bus services. London definitely has better airport connections than New York, with direct rail services to all 6 airports and an airport express service to 3 of them. This provides quick and convenient connections from the airport to central London, which New York falls behind on. Overall, I'd say that the 2 cities' public transportation networks are too different to crown a winner. Instead of saying one is better than the other, it is more important to compare them, seeing what each city does, and hopefully allowing the cities to learn from each other. Both cities do metros very well, but London is good at regional and commuter rail, and New York is good at ferries and commuter buses. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.